Hello everyone, welcome to another TV show from the online motivation portal with me, Hilman Basri, going on solo today, but no worries because today we're going to talk about creativity. Creativity, what is it, and we're going to discuss a whole chunk of it, and basically as an informal thought, I'm just going to share with you some examples of creativity at the workplace, in school, etc., etc., so that you have a better idea of how to go about in doing creative stuff in your normal everyday life. And basically, what I'm going to say is creativity also comes from within. Right? It's not about people who are born that way and people who are born this way. It has to come from yourself, but it can be created. Right? That's why it's called creativity. Right? And I'm going to share with you some of my past experience in the creative industries, as well as my pursuit to actually focus more on creative stuff in order to achieve better things. So stay tuned to find out more on the online motivation portal. I'm Hilman Basri. Today we're going to talk to you about creativity. Alright, welcome back. Alright, we took a short break. Alright, I took my glasses off. So don't worry, you are still on the same show. Right, we're going to talk to you about creativity. Alright, basically, as I mentioned before, creativity comes from within. Alright, how we solve our problems, how we make decisions, all can be boiled down, can be tied down to being creative. Alright, then a lot of people will be asking, what has creativity got to do with life? You see, I begin to think that creativity has everything to do with how we handle life itself. You see, in a workplace, I normally have to also see how the synergy of the particular workplace. If everyone is so straight, everyone is just doing things, not being able to take the risk. One thing about creativity is one has to be able to have the guts to take risk. Therefore, creativity can be produced. Other than that, if everyone is just so stressful, and we mentioned about stress in some of my previous videos, it's not going to create a healthy environment to work with, and basically creativity will never ever evolve in such places. And you don't want to be stuck in such a working environment or any type of environment, even a school environment. So when I enter a workplace, right, I might be new, right, I learn how to adapt with people, socialize with people. And a lot of times, right, the comments that I get from my colleagues is that, oh, he gets along well with people and stuff like that. Right, basically, it's not because I'm a genuine or I'm a very extrovert person. Right, on the exterior it might be that, but on the interior is a lot of times how I socialize with people is because most of the time I strike questions that interest them. I strike questions that I strike a conversation that can elaborate into bigger things to talk about rather than the yes/no answer. We don't ask yes/no questions because if you want to get to know someone, all right, you have to ask questions that requires more than just a yes/no answer. So what is it all about, and what has it got to do with creativity? Right, creativity is basically how you want to decide on which pathway will give you the utmost advantage. I believe that when someone is creative, he has the power, alright, is given the power to actually explore a lot of alternatives in their life. Maybe a way to solve that problem is to do it that way. But when you are creative, you find other alternative ways. That's why every time when we talk about creativity, it's always about thinking out of the box. They have a box and then they say, ask you to think out of the box, which is relatively true. It's about thinking out of the box. But how do you actually think out of the box? Okay, I gotta say that creativity comes from within. It can start from someone very young, alright? You can go for art classes, alright? Sometimes I can actually see a child's creativity from the very start. Like if you give them just glue, paper and scissors, they can make something out of it, right? You don't have to tell them what to do, they can make something out of it. That is a telltale sign that that person is gifted, right? Is very creative with their hands, right? That's something which I believe I was when I was young. You know, you give me certain type of materials, I can create something out of it. And as the time goes on in my life, how I feel that, you know, being creative helps me with my, you know, with me pursuing bigger things in life is when I learned about software. You know, I don't go to classes to learn about software because, you know, how classes, we in this Asian culture, we always have this thing of we don't like to be in the wrong, you know, we don't like to make mistakes in front of other people. I don't know whether this is just an Asian culture or everyone's culture, but I notice a lot in our culture because when I teach or when I lecture, if I were to ask questions on the students, none of them will want to raise up their hands and answer the question because they are afraid of getting the answer wrong. And when they get the answer wrong, a lot of people will, you know, laugh at them and stuff like that. This is the typical, you know, Asian thing that I always see, and at times I get a bit disgusted. But when I was studying abroad, I saw that people actually willing to make mistakes because, you know why, from making mistakes, that's where they get the real answer and they get to think outside the box, more into creative stuff. So, I was also a bit, you know, shy to go into classes to learn about software. So what I did was, I got hold of the software that I want to learn about, and then I had a try and error period, which takes a long time, but that's how it generates because you guys got hooked to, you know, learning that software, and then you just get used to it, and suddenly you master the software by learning it on yourself. So basically, when in terms of because I teach infocom stuff as well to students, and basically what I told them when learning software is not about having a manual by your side and then reading it, doing it, reading it, doing it. It doesn't work that way because in time you just forget. Alright, especially if it's a software that you are forced to learn, I tell you, once after class you just toss the note somewhere and then you forget about it, and it comes to the next class, you just forget about what you actually learned through the manuals. So basically, a lot of times I always tell them to make mistakes. That's how you learn to in software. You know, then you master it by, you know, after going through multiple mistakes. But the beauty is because you learn it on your own, or you're willing to learn. Alright, it makes things much more easier. So basically, I would say that my pursuit in terms of creativity is that I went through a lot of failures, I went through a lot of mistakes before I mastered the art of certain various art forms. Okay, so a lot of people said, is creativity just about being artistic? Not really. Alright, when we talk about creative arts, alright, people will always say, oh, it has to be something about art, alright? Fine arts, performing arts, whatever artistic portrayal they are trying to talk about, they say it's creativity. Yes, most of the time arts represents creativity and it just have that equal sign to the opposite part. But as I mentioned before, creativity in a workplace, how you make decision making is also part of creativity, because without creativity, without that genes into you, right, embedded into you, you tend to be very narrow-minded in terms of how you make decision, and that might not be the best way to lead. Let's say if you are a manager of a particular company, or just maybe a team leader for a particular project, you have to have that capability to think outside the box, because a lot of people are wanting you for advice. Alright, they want you to come up with something. You are the leader, and in most of the time leader get pressurized because they just couldn't answer to the team members' queries. Okay, some of my personal experience when I was directing films, stuff like that, my backstage crew, or all my crew members, my cameraman, my arts directors, stuff like that, they normally came to me with piles and piles of questions. And of course, you don't have answers to all the questions, but you don't want to tell them that, right? You have to come up with something because they are expecting you to come up with something. So you have to be creative when it comes to, you know, dealing with their questions, because it requires more than just knowing the technical stuff. It requires you to know what can be done. Like most of the time, I notice that my creative juice is being challenged most of the time when coming to set a scene. Alright, they have, let's say it's a jail scene, and then my camera person will be asking, where are we going to have a jail scene, or where are we going to do this, there, where, which, what, all the WH questions will start piling up. So that's the time that you have to, be calm and collected. I actually sit down and I think about how the frame is going to be like, and basically I come out with something through creativity. Alright, when someone, especially in the filming industry, doesn't practice these creative aspects of thinking, he or she will be very technical, and they will often be the most boring people to work with. Alright, I love working with actors because for me, I think actors have the most cultured artistic taste, as well as they are also open to a lot of changes. And when we come to changes, right, as I mentioned before, changes are most of the time good. Alright, and a lot of times when I work with actors, they are open to changes, they can adapt to changes, and then they can actually, make change happen. So basically, that's part of creativity itself, because you have that, open feeling to accept and adapt to something. Whereas if you are very rigid and very technical, or if I could say, use that word, very anal about certain stuff, and there's no two-way about it, it's just not gonna work. You're just gonna be someone who's gonna be the pain in the butt, alright, to work with. And I don't like working with people like that, and I can guarantee you that you wouldn't want a person like that. So I'm always open to new challenges, to new stuff. Basically, when I joined a particular education institution, alright, when they asked me to come up with a syllabus, I try to develop various types of ways in which it challenged student creativity. Alright, when especially, like, let's say if I want to teach about photography, alright, I don't just tell them the specs. I mean, I hate teaching photography just by telling them the specs of the camera. They can learn that, they can read the manuals. I don't really need to tell them, oh, this is the lens, and this is it goes from 25.56 frames per second. They'll get bored to death. But what they want to do is they want to take pictures. So basically, I just teach them the very basic fundamentals of a camera, and then they're going out there to take pictures. What's interesting about teaching photography is that I enjoy when they came back with their pictures, they select their best pictures, and then after that, I told them to tell a story behind the picture that you select. And then the story really will can memorize me, can amaze me, can surprise me as well. And that's the beauty of photography in terms of the creative aspect. Which is why when people ask me about photography or any part of the creative arts, I would say that I'm more of a creative type of lecturer. I don't really look so much in technicality. I mean, face it, when we watch a film, how many times do we actually think, oh, what kind of camera do they use behind the scene? What kind of lighting do they use behind the scene? We just judge by what we see, alright? I mean, of course, those people who used to work in backstage crew would think like that, but you just want to enjoy how the story is being done. So basically, even Alfred Hitchcock, if I can cite him, he said that in a whole film, right, the most important aspect is the script. It's not about you being good with your camera angles. Alright, I think my comments will have a certain distress among some DOPs out there, but I'm just saying this. I want to create a very healthy working environment, which is why a very healthy working environment is that everyone interacts with one another, and it has to be very interactive and very flexible. And creativity in a workplace will create this type of flexibility, will create this type of interactions, and it's gonna be a very healthy working environment. Which is why I always try to inculcate all these aspects in any workplace that I go, even if I'm not directing in a film set, if I'm lecturing, like what I mostly do nowadays. Alright, I try to, get out of the norms of just teach. I want to do more than that. I want to create a more interactive prospect for the students so that they enjoy my class. It's not just about us creating learning plans or learning syllabus, or lesson plans just for them to learn, and then after that, what's going to happen next. Alright, so basically when it comes to creativity, there is a lot of things that we can explore. It's all about exploration, my friends. You know, if you don't want to explore, chances you wouldn't know what creativity is. Everyone has it. It's about time you discover yours. I discovered mine, and I'm working towards mastering mine. Some people said that, oh, they're good in cooking. And I said, now good, you know that you have the passion for cooking, now it's time to be creative in cooking. Alright, so they started to create a lot of fusion dishes, which is totally delicious in many ways. And then that's creativity. They like it, they love to do it, they keep on exploring it, and every time they explore more, giving those creative juice out of their body system, they just feel enlightened to keep on doing it, and then put their best plate ever for, so if they are working in a restaurant. For my case is that I'm already in the industry where they call creative industry. So everyone has to be assumed to be creative. But of course, sometimes you might bump into a couple of people who are just so square or so rigid with their work, and it just pisses you off. It pisses me off, but lucky for me, I know how to handle with people who are like that. Sometimes I help them to understand what it means like to be flexible. Flexibility comes creativity, comes interactive. It's a healthy thing. And most of my lectures, or most of my the videos that I always portray, I always recommend at the end of the day you have a very healthy life. Not just healthy in terms of fitness, but also healthy in terms of other aspects. So creativity can be one thing that you want to create something that people have never created before. You want to create something for yourself so that it makes life much more interesting for you. Alright, creating something for your loved ones. Alright, that is part of creativity. Alright, so what actually drives a person to become creative is anyone's guess. As I said, the more you explore, the more you when I talk about exploring, sometimes I always say that explore other types of jobs, jobs that has nothing to do with your passion, and then after that you have a mix and match. Which is why when I was an undergrad, as I was doing creative arts, so I worked around with a lot of creative people. So it develops me to be much more open and flexible with the way I think. Before that, I was quite rigid in the way I managed stuff because, hey, face it, I was in the army, I was in the police force, so I was having that very, regimental way of doing things. Alright, and sometimes I feel like it's a very orthodox way of doing things as well. So I changed the moment I was around all these creative people, and of course you take a few criticism with the way you manage things, because I always have that thing that yes, I might be firm, but I get things done. That's true, but the synergy, you are not creating a very healthy environment. Today I realized that was my mistake before, and then today any workplace that I go to, if I see stressful people, I would tell them to calm down and then hyperventilate or whatever it is, because it's not worth that stressness. Because I said I don't like to be around very stressful people, as I mentioned in all my videos, and I don't like to be in an unhealthy situation, let alone unhealthy working environment. So being creative doesn't require much. It just requires you to spare a thought and then be much more innovative with the way you handle things, alright, especially in decision making. Alright, as a team leader or as a film director before, as a film producer, I had to use a lot of this in terms of my decision making. And when I make a decision making, I have to make sure that my decision will benefit everyone in my team, not just myself. So how do you do it? How do you think outside the box? That's how creativity starts gelling in. Okay, when we talk about creativity as a whole, alright, I have to mention that it doesn't take someone with high status. Sometimes they say, creative people, a lot of people stereotype me because he's a bachelor in creative arts, that's why he's creative. No, that's so wrong, right? I took a bachelor in creative arts because I can foresee myself in the years to come I'll be teaching creative arts as a lecturer, alright? And that's what I want to do. So basically, it's not, for me, I felt that it wasn't really enough just for me to tell everyone in the world that, okay, I'm a creative person. Alright, look at my work that I've done. Alright, but at the same time, now that I'm backed up with a paper to certify that I'm in the creative arts, I have a bachelor's in the creative industries, it just strengthen your credibility. Right, but that's me, right? But for you, right, even though you are in other industries, you can still portray creativity. Alright, staff welfare, student welfare, or the welfare of the people under you can be dealt with a lot of creativity. Explore, my friends, just explore, because you never know what's installed. Usually, on my terms, when I talk about creativity doesn't actually hurt anyone. It actually, all the decisions that I make out of creativity often benefits everyone, doesn't hurt anyone. But all the decisions that I make through rigidness, through just following by the book, and then assuming that the book is always right, is always the one killing a lot of individuals, and they tend not to like me after I make several decisions. If, let's say, you are stuck in a situation where you have to actually, follow by the book, at least, spend a moment after you make a decision, explain to your team members that, the reason why you have to do this, and explain to them will actually ease the tension among you and your colleagues in your workplace. You see, how you communicate with people and how you relate to them is also part of creativity. Alright, in counseling, when I was in counseling school doing my masters, I was often, we are always asked what type of questions would you ask our clients, and then all these things takes a little bit of creativity. Of course, there are those questions are already in the template, that we can always use those questions in the template, but sometimes different people, we always have different situations, and not all the time. It's not the kind of thing that, it's a template that can works for everything. Alright, and most of us, we are different. Most of us, when we become counselors, all of us are specialized in different areas. I'm specialized in adolescents and juveniles, whereas some people are specialized in marriage counseling, etc., etc. So basically, there is no clear-cut template. It's a situational thing, and how we as counselors handle our client has to be on a case-to-case basis. But the questions that we ask often has to come out with a lot of creative ideas. Right? How can we communicate well with them? Because basically the first thing, the rule in counseling is to build that therapeutic alliances with your client. So in order to build that, if you actually explore a bit of creativity, you will build that alliance in no time, in a split second. So basically, I would say that there's no harm being there's no harm being creative. Oh my goodness. There's no harm being creative. At the same time, explore as much as possible. Because creativity is not about that guy is born that way. It's not. You are not born with creativity. You develop it. Just like how when we learn stuff when we study stuff. Alright, people who are good in studies, they are not born that way. They actually study hard. So it's creativity, because they use it very often, they explore it very often. That's why it becomes part of their life. So everything that they do, when even trying to fix some appliances in the house, or to do this certain problem. For some people it might be a big problem, but for you it's like, no, we can fix this thing just like that. That's why sometimes I always, when there's a whole commotion, I always ask them what's the commotion, and then I said, look, alright, you can do it this way, that way. No, you just have to think outside the box. Alright, so basically, it just needs, you have all the time in the world to explore creativity for yourself. And then I can assure you, your life, if it's being embedded with a lot of creative things around you, and the way you think is more creative and innovative and always out of the box, I tell you, you will be the best leader a team can ever have. Alright, so that's it for me talking about creativity for today. Alright, of course there are a lot of other jargons of information we can talk about creativity. Alright, we can go into the science stuff and stuff like that. But because this is more of an informal session that I have with you today, I'm just going to relate to you what creativity means. So try to develop creativity by yourself, and then use it on your normal daily routine, and then actually develop it within yourself. And in time, when creativity is in your system, I will tell you that you will be the best and the most healthiest individual of all. in your life. Alright, so basically that's me, Hilman Basri, signing out. We'll talk about creativity today. Alright, if you have any questions regarding today's topic or anything to add on with it, you can just email me on my normal portal, my normal email, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, and so be happy, be creative, my friends, and I'll see you on our next show. Alright, coming up soon. It's me, Hilman Basri, signing out. Alright, subscribe to the Online Motivation Show channel on YouTube, and then I'll see you next time. Bye bye.